Hi, I'm Scott Douglas at the Utrecht School of Governance.
Hi, I'm Jo Luetjens. So we're from the Successful Public Governance team at the Utrecht School of Governance, and we've been asking what's the best that could come from this crisis. But I think what we've really learned over the last couple of years is that there are these really inspiring and courageous stories emerging from government and governance. So I think the one takeaway has just been to remember how capable government actually is in dealing with these types of things.
So we've been collecting some great stories from the recent past. For example, the Australian HIV/AIDS response in the 80s and the 90s was actually taken as a cause to move towards community healthcare, to strengthen the connections between the gay community and the government, parties that were usually at odds before. Or post-crisis, we looked at the GI Bill, which was introduced in the 1940s to reward all those people coming back from the front line, to make sure the economy would start again by giving them access to education, to housing, actually raising a generation. So the crisis was really well used there. And in asking this question, what's the best that could happen, we've been getting some great responses from across the world. From the front line, we're very honored to get a response from the city manager of Bergamo in Italy, who talked about the shared purpose that he sees in his people, the urgency they feel, people showing up on time on meetings. We've been hearing from doctors in the south of Holland, also very hit, and they talk about digitization and how they are seeing patients at long distance, how they can help people monitoring their health at distance. Or from police officers here in Utrecht, who talk about strengthening ties with the community, repositioning the police as someone that can help, that someone has a sense of what's going on in the neighborhood. But we've also been asking government scholars around the world what they're expecting, and Jo can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I think some of the things that are really coming through, one of these things, obviously we're all kind of working online, we're all moving towards these online solutions, and a lot of different kind of policy areas were already doing things like this. But now it seems to be going a little bit further as well, whether it's something like what you mentioned, Scott, with the telemedicine. That was already kind of on the rise prior to the pandemic, with many patients being consulted over the phone. But now maybe the possibilities for, measuring your heart rate and having these kind of extra consultations, we're not really sure what's going to be possible, but we are seeing that these things could be possible in the future. I think one thing that, or more substantively, the current situation, it does offer a really good case study of how good online working solutions could counter these bigger problems if we think of things like climate change or city pollution or resource scarcity. I think in addition to the environmental benefits of moving towards these kind of online working formats, then it could potentially enhance the democratization of knowledge. If we think, for example, of our academic community and just attending conferences or any of these things, by making these meetings and seminars accessible to everyone from all locations and backgrounds. Well, kind of in line with that as well, one of the other themes that is coming through is this kind of the systemic inequalities and what could be possible in the future as well. I think we've had a few suggestions seemingly under the line of kind of challenging our dominant neoliberal paradigm as well, and the alarming growth of inequality that has resulted from the past 40 years. So this could be an opportunity to really redress some of those things as well.
Yeah, and I think a key one, and a lot of scholars have been talking about that from Denmark, but also New Zealand and California, is not just the cash and the capacity that's going to government, but the confidence now. So are we seeing that government is willing to take back control of the public and private partnership, so that this collaboration that the people have been talking about and signaling everywhere is actually here to stay? Maybe with government as a collaborative platform, as Ansel talks about in California and Torving talks about in Denmark, orchestrating collaboration, or maybe something a little bit more forceful. Government is now seizing control of factories, is instructing private companies what to do. What if they don't give it back? And I think this is what Jo and I are wondering about anyway. So we see hopes, and that's really good to keep saying, but we also know from colleagues like Paul Hart and Arjen Boyne that the crises do not always lead to reform. The window for change is actually quite small. And what are the real powerful drivers for change here? I think one of them could be that we hold new truths to be self-evident, to take a Jeffersonian look at revolutions, that government is actually needed for long-term planning, that the market cannot handle that, that government needs access to certain resources, and a bit more teeth to it than the current collaborative spirit. I'm interested to see whether the government is going to take a bigger role after this. What about you, Joe?
Well, I think so. Some of the other suggestions as well that were kind of coming in, they have a lot more to do with the different power relations in society. And I think the example that you were talking about first off with the GI Bill as well, we really saw how that kind of spurred this civic generation. It really empowered these previously disenfranchised or groups of people that didn't really have any power or voice within society. And I think we're starting to see, or potentially one thing that could emerge from this, if we look at the US right now, I mean, it's an election year, right? So how is that actually going to work? That we could actually see an increase in mail-in ballots for all US citizens, which could increase voter turnout and have different effects or even enhance democracy. I think also another way that this could kind of spur the civic generation, if we think about what that means right here and now, then it could be that it lends itself to this greater appreciation in terms of pay, respect, working conditions for the professionals that are now deemed essential and vital, from everyone from teachers, from cleaners to truck drivers, supermarket employees, delivery chain, all these kinds of things with the right organization. It would be really interesting to see what happens as a result of this.
Yeah, so great. So I think looking over it, I think we see a lot of hope, and I think we were inspired by what we heard people talking about digitization, fighting inequalities, collaboration. And also making us wonder what will last, right? What are some of the real systemic changes that will not go away, that have started now, that have been unleashed? So I think that's maybe the question we'd like to ask of our colleagues and of our partners across the world. What are the best hopes you have for what could come from this crisis, and what is needed to make sure that these hopes are realized? Thank you for now, and see you in the next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks.